Okay, welcome back to another probability video. This one is going to be about the complement rules of probability. Complement you can think of as just sort of the opposite, the other side of the coin, so to speak. So if we say that there's a probability of some event occurring, there's also a probability of some event not occurring. Okay, so that same event. Earlier we calculated that the probability of rolling a 1 on a 6-sided dice is 1 in 6. And the probability of not rolling a 1 is 5 out of 6. There's 5 ways that you cannot roll a 1. Remember that probabilities always range from 0 to 1, and these complements always will add up. Okay, if you add these probabilities together, you always get the number 1. Okay, and that should make sense, because if you're saying, well, there's a probability that it will happen, there's a probability that it won't happen, the probability that one of these two things will happen has to be 100%. One of these two will happen. It'll either be a 1 or it'll be something else. So that's all we're saying. It's fairly simple rule. If you know one, you can convert to the other. So in other words, if you wanted to find the probability of an event not happening, it's pretty simple. You just take the number 1 and you subtract off the probability that the event does happen. Okay, so just remember these add up to 1. You can set up the equation, solve, or you can do these things. So likewise, you could go the other way. The probability of an event is always 1 minus the probability of it not happening. As we move forward, sometimes when you're trying to solve a problem, trying to figure out what the probability that something will happen, sometimes it's just easier to calculate the probability that it won't happen. And that makes it easy. Once you have the probability that it won't happen, you subtract it from 1 and you've got the probability that it will happen. So it just depends on which one's an easier thing to calculate sometimes. And that might be what you go with. So this is kind of a handy rule of thumb. Just understand that if there's a probability that something will happen, there's also a probability that something won't. Those two probabilities always have to add up to 1.